Hello everyone and welcome to the podcast. How are you all doing this week? I am Nick Hunter and this is the UFO Chronicles Podcast. Tonight we're in Scotland to meet Nicola and she'll be sharing her experiences that began as a child with strange out-of-the-body sensations, distorted perceptions and a hand that grabbed her awake at her grandmother's house. As she grew older, the activity continued, including a violent hair-pulling incident during a sleepover and a moment of spoken anger that seemed to echo forward into a real car crash. In the mid-90s, Nicola and her sister witnessed something that changed everything. A silent, metallic sphere hovered in broad daylight over a field near their home in Auchtertool. It moved in ways that didn't seem to make sense, and what happened next left a lasting mark on both sisters, and a terrifying feeling that something intelligent was behind it. Nicola is up next. But first, if you enjoy the show and you would like to help support the podcast on Patreon, you can do this for as little as $1 a month. Head on over to patreon.com/UFO Chronicles Podcast. You can also find a link in the description of this episode. Any help is very much appreciated. Now, on with the show. Hello Nicola, welcome to the podcast.
Hi Nick, how are you?
I am wonderful, thank you. Thank you for joining us today, and you're calling from Scotland.
Yes, I am. I'm calling from Fife.
Wonderful part of the world, I must admit. Okay, now you have some experiences to share with us. Would you like to start at the beginning, please, ma'am?
Yes, of course, thank you. Yeah, this is one of my very first things actually. So I didn't have lots happen when I was young, but what did happen, it was quite impactful and I couldn't ignore it. So I remember being I must have been around primary 5 or 6, and we were staying in a house in a town called Kirkcaldy, that's where I'm from. And I remember it was so brief. It didn't happen many times. It was so brief and I still find it hard to articulate what happened. But I've sometimes heard, it's through podcasts that I've heard people refer to the Alice in Wonder syndrome. I'm not sure if I've heard people talking about that, but I think I've heard one person who described it perfectly. So I remember lying in bed and my whole face felt too big for me. And I remember trying to explain it to my mum the next day and I couldn't. I still find it really difficult to do that. I felt like my skin was wrong for me. And that feeling it stayed with me. I could still feel it in my face that I felt like my mouth was too big for me. I felt like my mouth was taking up the whole of the walls in the room. And it was really uncomfortable. And it was in that space when you're just drifting off to sleep. And I don't know if it was in this house, but this is where I felt myself leave my body. I'm in bed and I feel myself I didn't drift up. I found myself so close to the ceiling that I felt my face tilt back because I thought the jaggy, the Arctics, the old jaggy, the 80s, I guess, ceilings, I felt the jaggy stuff. I thought the jaggy stuff was going to jag my face. And I remember tilting my face back and then just bang, I'm back. But I do remember other times where I woke up and I was so sure that I could fly. I was so sure that I remember standing at the top of the stairs before school and I just had that dream where I was outside and I was flying round the cul-de-sac. I was looking at things I shouldn't have been able to see. That could be a dream, I don't know. But when I woke up, it was so vivid. I remember holding on to the top of the stairs thinking, I think I could do it. If I just take one leap, I believe I could do it. And then, I didn't do it. I walked down the stairs like a normal child, but I felt like I could take that leap I felt like I could almost let myself go into the air. It was almost like I had that little ability to go into fly mode. So yeah, that was one of my really early things. So there was the outer body kind of thing. It's not a lot, but it did sit in my mind. It's always stayed there. The thing that happened after that, so it would be a few years after, I was staying in again in Kirkcaldy in my grand's house, and I didn't stay in this house much. I didn't feel good in this house. It felt fine downstairs, but it didn't upstairs. It was a terrace house. It had in the garden, it had, the old bomb shelters with corrugated sheet sort of arched over. It still had that in the garden. Some of the gardens still had them. And it was just it wasn't super old. I think it must have been built, obviously pre-war, but maybe not long before that. So it was like a 3-bedroom house. You walk in the house, there's a living room, a hall, the bathroom, then a kitchen, and upstairs is 3 bedrooms. And it had a loft with a glass cover. They really scare me, the glass covers. I guess it's so you get extra light into the hall. But this upstairs, I couldn't get past a certain step up there. It was so creepy. So this one night, my sister and I, we were maybe about 2 years between us, if that, I think. We stayed in my grand's room. So this front room, it had a street light right outside, which was novel. I didn't stay somewhere with a street light like that. So the light was there. It was this orangey ambery light. It was kind of comforting. We were in these single beds side by side. And there was this really old walnut furniture, a big wardrobe, all shiny, gorgeous walnut, and this dresser. It was very pretty, and I had all my granny's fur coats inside the wardrobe. And the 2 beds are, facing the window with, a table or something in the middle. And so my sister slept on the bed closest to the door when you walk in. I slept in the bed closest the wall, the farthest wall. And there was a cupboard there that she didn't have the key for. She says she didn't have the key for. So nobody used it. That was her mother's house. She grew up in that house. So she'd lived there her whole life. This wardrobe, she said, just wasn't used. And my bed was about a metre away from this door. So Lana and I, my sister, we were scared. We were always creeped out, always. We were always jumping into each other's beds and, Nick, are you awake? Lana, are you awake? Kind of thing. I'm sure people that share bedrooms know that exact feeling when you're scared at night. Is such a comfort to have a sibling beside you to be scared with. So I'm lying in this bed and I woke up. I'm lying flat in the bed and I woke up with a hand. It clearly felt like a hand, and it grabbed my thigh. And it grabbed my thigh to a place where it felt it was too high. I remember it woke me up and it felt so sharp. It felt like something. The hand, I'm doing it now with my hand, so I'm trying to explain this. So I'm lying down in the bed and it felt like whoever's hand it was standing facing me. So, the pinky finger was closer to the bottom of my leg, thumb higher. And it felt like it dug into my thigh, and I could feel I woke up petrified to move, to breathe, to do anything. I stayed awake all night until the daytime came, and I never ever stayed in her house again. And that feeling was so clear, and I was in a dead sleep, and I'm so certain of this. I must have been around, perhaps I had a sister who was just born, so maybe about 9. And this hand, it was so clear. I can remember the digging in of the hand now, and it grabbed my thigh so tight, and it didn't feel kind. If that was a granny or a granddad that used to live in that house, they weren't happy. because that was not a nice feeling. It was a grab and then nothing. So that was the hand. Generally sleeping, I was petrified, and I don't know what of. I have earlier memories than those events, and I just remember being petrified in bed, so scared of something in the dark. And I can't tell you if I saw anything. Nothing happened, but I was petrified for years and years inside my bed. And other people will know what I'm talking about when you're under your duvet cover and you're trying not to breathe and you're pacing, you're breathing, and you're trying to act like you don't know that they know that you know, if that makes any sense. So I spent a lot of time in that state growing up. There was one thing actually. This is a really, really scary thing that happened. This is when I started high school. So I had a friend that lived in a village called Kinghorn. That's Kinghorn. And it's a little village just outside the town. And it's really creepy. It's got walls. It's a coastal town. It's got a little harbour. I mean, everything around here is really coastal. So Kinghorn, they had, just to try and set a scene, Kinghorn is quite old. There are sort of ghost stories about, spooky tales. It's a bit of a creepy little place. It's really old. There's walls still there now, and the construction of the walls, they're high, like 6 foot high stone walls, and on the tops they have broken glass all sticking out the tops. That must be their form of security for back then. And the walls are still like that. Some of them are still like that. So this house was very in keeping with these walls. So you walked in this house and you walked into the middle level of the house, and you could go downstairs, which looked straight out onto the water. And if you went down some steps outside, there was a beach. They had their own private beach there. It sounds fancier than it is. It was just those little houses in coastal towns that are mishmashed together and they're all squished. It was kind of like that. So it had this little bit of beach underneath. You came back up to the middle floor and then you go up again, and that was the top floor. So we slept in her bedroom, obviously. So I was there. I was to have a sleepover, and we were sitting on her floor. She didn't have a big room. It was you walk in the room. It was kind of a rectangular room with a wardrobe at the very end, a window to the right, and her bed was to the right behind the door, a single bed. So it wasn't a big room. So we're sitting on the carpet in front of the wardrobe doors. The wardrobe doors were open. This was a wardrobe that had drawers underneath. I can't remember if it was one or two, but the doors were shorter than the length of the wardrobe. So the doors are sitting open, and we had this wax. We were playing with like melted wax, and we're rolling it into balls and shapes. And right beside us is the wardrobe doors. And we were so close that I don't know how the wardrobe doors didn't hit us, but both the doors slammed with force at the very same time right beside us. And I froze. And I looked at my friend, Kerry, she was called. I looked at my friend, and she looked at me back and said, "You just get up, act like it didn't happen." And I followed her lead and we got up out the room. So in that moment, I'm thinking, she's had this happen before. This is like a thing. So I was really scared to sleep in this room this night. I was so afraid. So it comes to bedtime, and we didn't play in that room again. We went outside, we went to the beach, we played outside, we didn't go back into the room. So it comes bedtime, and we're topping and tailing, so that's, a pillow at either end, and we're just small, so we were comfortable. So Kerry is at the top of the bed with the walls around her, which I was very envious of. She had the safety of these walls around her head, but for me, I had the wardrobe at my head. It was the closest thing. So the windows, to the side of me, on my left, because I'm facing her, and the wardrobe is behind me, slightly to the right. And we fell asleep and it seemed fine. But then I felt something rip my hair out. It actually pulled my hair out. I jumped up, I screamed, we put the lights on, and there was hair on the pillow. My hair must have been just, sitting naturally long over the pillow. It took me until I was about 30 plus to sleep without tucking my hair down into my pillow or down my neck because it impacted me so much. I was petrified after that. So, yeah, that was the Kinghorn story. So there was, I don't know which one of these came first, but I'll get the smaller one out the way before I get into the UFO one because I might talk quite a bit about that. So I feel like this might have been after. It was around the time, it was the 90s. I had a boyfriend in the village. I lived in a village, Auchtertool, which is 3 miles outside Kirkcaldy. So we'd moved by that point. And Auchtertool is a very boring, mile-long village with nothing apart from a nursing home and at the time a little pub. So you kind of had to make your own fun. So I'm with people out in the street and there's this boyfriend going past who I had broken up with, and he stopped in his car and he's like, chatting, being cheeky, and he's talking to me, my best friend, and her boyfriend. He's in the car and he's got a car full of boys, they're 18, they're just driving kind of thing. And we didn't part on good terms. So I was feeling bitter. So when they stopped, I didn't speak. They drove away, and I'm not proud of what I said, but out loud I said, I hope he crashes that car. And I've been so careful with my words ever since, because we were not even at the bottom of the village and ambulances, 3 ambulances go past us. And my stomach dropped and I thought, no, that can't be. And yeah, they crashed the car, and some of them had to be, I can't remember if they were cut out, but it was a very bad crash. The road where we lived, the road, it's the B925, it's very twisty, windy, fun road, but that also means it's very dangerous, and there's been quite a lot of fatalities on that road. Where they crashed was the exact same spot almost a year after 4 young men were killed, sadly, right on the same bend. And they were hurt. There was one of the guys in the car, that was with the guy I had been seeing. He was left very physically hurt. He was crippled afterwards. He found it very difficult to get about. So it was a serious crash, and that was a heavy thing for me to live with, believing that I had caused that crash. It still sits with me now, so I'm very careful with my words, and I do use that instance as an example to my kid to say, you've got more power than you realise, because I do believe I made that happen. Maybe it was a bit of his immaturity that caused that crash too, but I certainly won't be cursing anyone again. So I think we'll get into the UFO one. Right, so I'm living in the village in Auchtertool, and I'm from a big family. I'm the oldest of 5 children. There's 10 years between myself and my youngest sister. There's 4 girls, and it goes 2 girls, 1 boy, 2 girls. So my mum and dad were always out doing things with the dogs. They had the younger kids with them. Me and my sister, we were teenagers. This must have been about, I really can't remember the year, but I feel like I was about 15, 16. So that must have been about 19... My birthday is Christmas Day, 1980. So it's easy for me to count. So I'm not very good with numbers. So that would have been about 1996, if I was 15 through that year, something like that. So we lived in the village. We moved to the village because my dad worked on the rigs, on the oil rigs previously, and he got a job which was basically the same job but on land at a refinery. It's called Mossmorran. It's a really big plant. So it's split, half was Shell, half was Exxon, and my dad worked for Shell. And I remember when he first started working there, they have a helipad, small airfield. I'm not very sure, but I remember my dad telling me that when he first started working there, his colleagues told him that recently there had been a UFO attempt to land there. I don't know if that's true or not, but that stuck in my head. So we're living in this house. All the kids are out with mum and dad. They're kicking about in the Volvo estate, doing their thing. And they say, we've left Cassie, the dog. She was a tiny little boxer dog. We've left her at home. She's in the kennel. Can you and Lana take her out for a walk across the field? So our house was, it was afternoon. I said to Lana, we're going to have to get this done before they're home. So let's go and take Cassie out. So it's afternoon. It was a beautiful sunny day. It was summertime. It was just a lovely day. And the house was right next to a field. So we would, hop out the back door, let the dog out the kennel and just jump over the wall. And we were in the field. So we're walking up the field. If I should have given you a map for this. I'll drop you a pin later and you can see geographically how I'm trying to explain this. So we jump over the wall and this field is on a gradual incline. So our street is on a bit of an incline. So is the field. We jump over the wall and it's not long. Maybe we walk past our house, the next house, and then we're at the crest of the field. So we walk out and this field, I'm trying to explain this best I can, of the area. So we go up the field and the field, once you reach the crest, it goes whoosh, straight down. It's very steep. The tractors, would never go up it. They would only go down it, or it's the other way about. They could only do one way on this field because it was very, very steep. And at the very bottom was a burn, which I don't know if people know what a burn is. It's like a little river, a very small river. So at the burn, the field then goes dramatically upward again. So it goes up a hill. And there's an area of fields. There's another field with some horses. There's the backs of the houses from the cul-de-sac where I've just came. There's a little forest. There's quite a lot of, odd little sections of trees. And there's also a road farther left, about a quarter of a mile down to the left. That doesn't really come into this at all, though. So we jump over the wall. We're in the field. We reach the crest of the field. And Cassie, the dog, I might need to explain her behaviour. So Cassie was like, if she could, she'd run away. Every moment she would just run away. And she loved to burst balls, chase cats. She was such a funny little dog. She was like a brindle dog. That's kind of like a blacky red colour. And she was so small. I've not seen a boxer as small as her. She was very petite. And she was barking. Me and Lana, as we're walking up the hill, we're just sort of kicking our feet. It's a nice day. We're letting the dog out, not really thinking much. And then Cassie's barking. So we look up, and on the other side of the burn where the field rises again, there's a section of trees. And sort of above that is this, in my head I just thought, that helicopter's so low. And then I remember thinking, Why can't I hear it? That's not a helicopter. What is that? So in this happened over just seconds. Cassie, the dog, she's getting really aggressive at this point. And bearing in mind, she's been in the kennel for probably a few hours. She could really do with a walk at this point. She hadn't even, done her business yet. And she stopped barking and ran back to the kennel. And I was so scared in that moment, because right at that moment, this thing, this round, it was a sphere, and I'm finding it difficult to compare the size to something, but perhaps a car, the size of a car, but it was a sphere, and it reminded me of, like, in Terminator 2 with the Mercury, the bad Terminator or the new model, and it's kind of drippy and mercury and it's shiny, metallic. It's got movement to it. So this thing, I couldn't tell. I couldn't find the words to describe what I was looking at. Was it water? Was it see-through? Was it twinkling? Was it light that was so bright it was doing something to me? Was it metal? I still don't know any of these things. But what I do know is, in the seconds that Cassie ran back, when I looked up, I reached my left hand out and I grabbed my sister's arm. And we're just standing beside each other. She was just a tiny tad, about a foot or two behind me. I held her back a little bit because this looked, I didn't understand it. And whatever it was, it knew the second I saw it, because quicker than I could blink, this thing was closer, which blew my mind, because how it's not making any sound. I didn't see it move. How is it doing this? What is this? And I grabbed my sister's arm and I took a few steps back, and then I just said, run. And I grabbed my sister's arm and we ran back to the house. And that was it. I didn't look back. But that thing knew that I knew I could see it. And it moved so close, so quickly, that it didn't make any sense. So I felt danger. I don't know if there was danger or if I was perceiving danger because it was something that I didn't understand. But I felt in danger, and I grabbed my sister and we ran back to the house. If the dog was the big red flag. That wasn't in her nature to behave like that. That was very out of character for her. So that, coupled with what we were looking at and how quickly the thing had come over the level of the burn, it was like it came to us, and that scared me. So we ran in the house, and I have no memory of what we did in the house, what we spoke about, if we told anyone. I've no memory of that. But approximately 1 month later, so remember, I'm not keeping any dates, and I don't remember things very well. So it was about a month later. So this thing that had happened was still recent. It was still in our minds. And it had left us shook. We were genuinely shook. So we're in bed, and I might have to describe the layout of the house. So the house was like a long bungalow, and we were really quite set back from the road. The whole street came between us and the road. So there's maybe like a row with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 houses before it got to the road, the main road that came into the village. So the village entrance was just in line with our house, but it was a good distance away. So because the way the land is, it's going up. So it used to just be a little street, and then they built this cul-de-sac on the hill with maybe 6, 7 houses, and ours was one of those. So we're on a bit of a hill. So this is important because my bedroom looked out towards the entrance of the village, but it was high. It was very high. Even though I was in a bungalow, I know how high it was. Very high. I used to have to, when I would sneak in and out my bedroom at night to go and look for fun in the village, I used to have to leave a long slab, tipped over on its side, and grab onto this old metal thing in the wall to get in my room. That wall must have been about 8 foot high. So we did not get like road traffic. You didn't see the light coming in the room really from the traffic because it was going through the village. It was parallel to our window and again, a good distance away. So I'm saying this because, people say, oh, maybe this was cars or it was someone with a strobe light. That was what my dad said. But what happened was we were in bed and my bed, we had the window between us. So my bed was facing the door, tucked into the right. My sister's bed was on the left of the window, left of the door, tucked in on the left. So we had the window between us, in the middle between us, our beds. And I woke up to a light that I would describe it as an LED light now. But back then, you didn't really see as many as you do now, LED lights. But it was like that white. It was so white blue. It was so bright, but it had a rhythm to the flash. So we had blinds. We had these, twisty blinds, horizontal blinds that twisted, and we had curtains over. So we really didn't get light in our room. This wasn't something that happened ever. But this light, I wake up and Lana's on my left arm grabbing at me and she's saying, let me in the bed, Nick, let me in the bed. Please wake up, let me in the bed. And I wake up and I'm just taking this all in seconds. I wake up, she's petrified, and there is this light in the room filling every corner of the room, which I don't know how that is possible without there being a light right in front of the window. And it was so strong, and I don't know how to time this for you, but it was going dim, 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 then up, 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 bright, like really bright. And then it was filling everything, holding for a second and going down, slow, dim, then back again. It was so rhythmic and it wasn't in a hurry. And you could see the shade of everything. You could see everything in the room. It was so bright. And then I pulled the covers over my head, and my poor sister, I pulled it over and I said, this isn't happening, this isn't happening, this isn't happening. And I just kept repeating that to myself. And then I hear Lana run away and my radio starts blaring. But I can't tell you if that was Lana in a panic that knocked it over on full blast, or if that was something else. But at that point, Lana's screaming. She gets to the door and my dad bursts through the hall and he's saying, what is going on in this room? And then there's nothing. There was just nothing, no lights, nothing. It was all over. And my dad said it was one of the boys in the village pranking us with a strobe light, which we completely disagreed with. And that is the end of the UFO incident.
That sounds pretty scary.
That was very scary. Yeah, that was very scary. I've had no more UFO experiences, but that one I did have, that's changed my life. That's changed my worldview. It's changed the trajectory of my life, the interests I have. I'm so grateful I had that experience. I feel so lucky to have had a UFO experience in broad daylight. I always thought UFO experiences were nighttime. It would be a shooting star kind of type thing, zigzagging through the sky, or a beam that would try and pick me up. But it was what I saw, and I could never have imagined it would be in broad daylight. And I truly believe that something came back, something came to see us, something. I feel like it kind of tagged us. I felt like we were on its radar from the sighting. But yeah, that's completely changed my life.
This is quite a large object. You said it was about the size of a car, looking like liquid mercury.
Similar. It's something. So the words that come to mind when I see it is iridescent, mercury, possibly mirrored, extremely shiny, reflective. But was it just light that I didn't understand? It seems like a material that I didn't understand. But it looked, to me as a human, it looked metallic.
And, of course, very large. So we're not looking at something like a mylar balloon or anything.
No, there's no 100% no way that was anything known to me or anybody else. I find it very difficult to find the words, because I don't have the words for what that was. I don't have it's not the physics that we're raised to understand. There was no sound. There was no, when it moved, how did it move without making sound? How did it come closer? If it was just a metal sphere or metallic sphere or liquid sphere, how did it know that I was looking? Did it have eyes? Did it see? Was there something inside it? I don't know, but it looked three-dimensional, and it had definition. It was 100% a perfect circle. It was like a bubble, but it was very big, and I don't understand how the people in the houses, in the cul-de-sac where I lived, the houses that sat on the crest, we sat on the hill going up, but the houses further up sat right on the crest of that hill. They had a beautiful view. They still do. And they must have seen that. Someone must have seen it. Obviously, they'd have to be in their house and looking out their windows at that time, but why was it there? What was it doing? I don't understand what I saw. I don't understand what it was. And my sister, she still corroborates that. Unfortunately, we haven't spoken in quite a long time, but we would occasionally, very, very occasionally, say, hey, do you remember the thing we saw? And the last time I ever spoke to her about it was with her husband, and he was so dismissive. He told us we were both crazy, and there was something wrong with us. And I could see she took a step back from, delving into the actual experience. I'll tell anyone. I've not got many things to say about it. I can just say what happened. It just actually gives me so much more questions. But I feel like it's something she puts away. She is very much afraid of the paranormal, and growing up, when things would happen, she saw things, so she would see things in our house. She once saw a dog run into our room, jump on the bed and go poof, disappear. That, I didn't actually let her tell me that until I'd moved out the house, because if I had seen anything, I could not sleep in that house, and I didn't have a choice. I had to sleep there. So she was very afraid of all that. She would be quite happy to pack that away and live happily in ignorance. But for me, I think it's just undeniable, and I take it as a sign. I'm just grateful that it happened, and it's opened up a whole other world for me that is so exciting and makes life much less boring.
I couldn't agree more. And it's not uncommon for people, like Lana, that push these experiences aside, even though they know full well that they happened. Her partner's the way he is, then she's not going to be as open and outspoken about it. More so if she's scared of this kind of thing.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I think growing up, it was a case of there's no such thing as ghosts, don't be silly. But I know that things have happened to my mum, and she very much brushes that aside. I think she's quite scared of that. So growing up, we were not raised in the type of home that embraced, the paranormal and everything that comes with that. Although I have to say, I'm a huge X-Files fan. And my dad, I used to spend a lot of time watching documentaries with my dad. And he was very scientific, but at the same time, he loved a good mystery. And he loved a ghost story. There's stories he's told me that I'm not actually sure are very true, or if they were, stories to creep out little kids. He did used to do things to really scare us, but the things that have happened, he was not responsible for. We did watch lots of documentaries, space, Bigfoot, X-Files, all that good 90s stuff. So I know he was open to it, and I enjoyed that with him. But my mum, she was afraid. And I think the story goes that her granny, so my great granny, she read tea leaves. So maybe there's something there that she's afraid of.
Oh, the old tea leaf readers. Oh, I remember them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're in the fan club of the X-Files. I love the X-Files. I love that kind of thing. I'm sure there are thousands and thousands of our listeners out there which are exactly the same. I grew up on the Twilight Zone and shows like that.
Ah, okay then. It's something I probably would have enjoyed. Or maybe it would have added to the nightmares, who knows. Really, as far as ufology, that's as far as my experiences go. I think I've had a few little things. So in Auchtertool, we're very close to a private estate. It's called Wraith. That's Raith, Wraith Estate. It's a pheasant shooting estate. So my dad always shot growing up. It was just what we did. And on the estate, it was beautiful. It is still beautiful. It's got a massive house, a huge stately home. It's a gorgeous place. It's very private. So when I would go there with my parents, it was a treat because you couldn't just walk through. The gamekeeper would, give you a yelling at. So since I've been small, I've had these dreams. It's a recurring dream of a place on Wraith Estate. I used to have a dream that I was at church or a chapel. It was a place of worship. And I was inside the chapel. But there was something outside the chapel that was trying to pull me outside. It wasn't something I could see. It was something that was trying to pull me out. And I don't even know if there was a chapel on the estate. But in the dream, it was always the same. There was this sunken down area before the entrance of this chapel, and it wasn't big, it was small, but there was something outside that was bad. It wasn't a good energy. It was a scary dream. But this was all it was. It was just this snippet. And I'd have that dream over the years, at least every year for quite a few years. I would have this dream. And then eventually I had my first baby and I had to get a bigger house. So my mum, she called up the laird who owned the estate and, oh, Nicola's looking for a bigger house. Do you have anything on the estate? So luckily for us, we got gorgeous little cottage on the estate. So we lived in there for, oh goodness, it was quite some time we lived there, maybe about seven years, something like that. I might be wrong. So we lived in this little house, this cottage on the estate, and I used to think it's really funny how that estate is like, it's part of my dreams, and I feel very close, I feel very connected to Wraith Estate for some reason. Maybe it's just the stories in my head when I was young, it was always very grand. My dad would, when he was home from the rigs, he would fix the laird's doorbells and electrical work. So he had all these houses on the estate that were rented out to people. So my dad, when he was home, he would fix washing machines. He was a sparky to trade. So he would fix things and we would often go along. I spent many times under the floors waiting for a cable to pop through. So we saw inside the house, and it was a gorgeous place to be, but goodness, it would be so creepy at night. And my dad did tell us a ghost story that he experienced on the estate as a young boy. So that just added to the whole mystique. So maybe I'm building a subconscious picture in my mind, and, I'm creating these dreams. Anyway, we move into the cottage, and that was a creepy, creepy cottage. It was very cold. It was so cold, even with heating on, you could see your breath. It was a old stone cottage, and it was right in a field where there's a tower called Balweary Tower, where famously there's a wizard in Kirkcaldy. I might get his name wrong. Michael, I think it's Wizard Michael or David, something like that. So there's stories about that wizard in Kirkcaldy. There's a monument to him, not a big fancy thing, a big wooden statue of this wizard of Kirkcaldy. It's near the park on a walk just to that field that we used to live in. So there's an old tower there in that field, and we actually lived. It felt very dark in that area. It did not feel good. So where the tower is where the wizard, he was actually a meteorologist and mathematician. I may be wrong, but people could check that out for themselves. It's quite a nice little rabbit hole to go down. So apparently he went everywhere wearing metal helmet because he had a premonition that he would be hit by something on his head and he would be killed. The only time he took his metal helmet off was when he would go into church, and he was doing just that, and a rock fell, or a slate, goodness knows what, but hit his head and killed him. So he had a premonition of his own death. So yeah, he lived in the field where our cottage was. And also just by that tower, there was a tree where there was a man hung. So the story goes, someone was hung in that field as well. And a lot of things happened for me in that house. I actually don't know anybody that lived there that didn't end their tenancy well. It was not a nice place to be. And I ended up separating from my husband at the time in that house. It did not feel good in that house. My daughter, who is 16 now, tells me about her experiences in that house. So in the house, she would say to me, I remember her saying this, Mother, there was a lady next to my bed. And I'd said, oh yeah, really? What does she look like? And she'd say she would wear a pinny, an apron, like an olden days lady. And I said, and where did she go? And she said she went through the wall. So as she's gotten older, she's explained more to me. And she used to play in that room with something chasing round her in the room. She says she always thought it was her father, which he would not do that. She would go to bed and she would have a cuddle, a book, and hopefully go to sleep. She remembers getting up more than once, and in her bedroom, it was a very big room, low ceiling, and again, really cold. And she had a round table, play table in the middle of the room. And she had a baby's buggy and a baby's pushchair. So she said she remembers something playing with her, chasing round the table in circles. She would be pushing one pushchair and the thing would be pushing the other. So she always thought it was her father, but he sort of said, that wasn't me. And obviously that he wouldn't be doing something like that when it's time to go to bed. So she believes it was a spirit, a ghost. And the thing that she said used to come to her with the apron, she likens that now to an olden days kind of lady, like a maid. She says she had a little thing on her head, an apron, a dress. So yeah, she's experienced things in that house too. I'm sure I'm forgetting about some things in that house, but the next house we moved to happened to also be on Wraith Estate. So I just moved from there about a year ago, in October. I moved from there. So that house, I would say, so my daughter, she's seen the Hat Man in that house, right next to her bed. She said she saw a Hat Man there. My son, he's had two experiences in that house. He was very young, but he was able to articulate what had happened to him well. And I kind of was sort of there for one of them. So the first thing that happened to my son, he's 13 now, he was running through the hallway, and he was running through the hall and he was going out to the back door, which led right out the hallway to a big deck. And he came running back, and I'm in my room, and he ran past the door for that room, which was open. And he comes running back and he says, Mother, I think I just saw something. I think I just saw myself. So he's saying to me that he believes he saw. So I'm sitting on my bed, and he sees next to me, now there was a chest of drawers. He said he saw a mirror and a black figure that looked like him running. And he looked at it and thought he saw himself, but it was black and it was in a mirror that wasn't there. So that was a really funny one. We've often spoke. So I listened to Jim Harold's Campfire, and there was once a guy on there that said the story where he was, I hope I say this properly now, Jim always does a way better job. So this little boy was basically in his house. He saw something standing there, a hooded figure eating cereal, what looked like he was eating cereal on a counter. And then flip to him being an older boy, he looks across, he's leaning on a counter eating cereal with a hood up, and he looks across and sees something run by. So Hugo, my son, he thinks that he may have seen himself, and I tend to maybe agree on that. So the next thing that he saw in the house was we were coming home, and Hugo was, he must have been, now let me think, he must have been about primary 6. He was needing the bathroom, and we just got back, so he goes running through the house, and I'm getting myself sorted, we're putting bags down or whatever, and he's running the house himself. He's gone to the bathroom. By that point, I walk through the house and I see him, and he's running back through the living room. He runs through, and I just see his face change, and he can't speak. He had, he was stammering. He couldn't even catch his breath, and he said, "There's a man in the house." So I check the house. It's a very small house. It's an old farmer's, a worker's cottage. It's not big. There's no one in the house. And he's gasping. He can't even speak. And he says to me, I said, "What did the man look like?" And he said, he had no legs. He had red, spiky up hair, like my daughter, who is redheaded. He said it was like Emily's hair. It was red and it was spiky, sticking up. He had a blue velvet jacket on and his face looked like it had been scribbled out by a black pen. That's probably one of the creepiest ones I've heard. And he's not seen any more. He has seen a few auras above people. He's asked what the colours are sometimes that come from people, but he said that doesn't tend to happen anymore. And when he was young, he did actually tell me, so he was quite young. He was about 2.5, 3 maybe, and we were driving past a shop and he pointed to this it's a motorbike shop, and it had a normal apex roof with black roof tiles, and he pointed to the roof and he said, and he was very, very young, so his words didn't speak like he does now. So he said to me, I was on a roof like that. I got shot in my back and it hurt and I fell and I died. That's what he told me. And yeah, he doesn't remember any of that now, which I think you often find when you hear these stories. But yeah, I was blown away, and he has such an affinity for military and war. So I don't know, was he in an accident, in battle, in a previous life? Who knows? Yeah, the boy is camo and gun obsessed. Maybe not so much now he's 13, it's kind of changing. But yeah, he's always had an affinity for military. So I'll just go back to the house, in the second house on Wraith Estate. So that house, it was very creepy. There was things that happened in that house to me that were probably the scariest things that have ever happened. There's lots of little things, like I would be in my bed on my own. The kids are next door asleep. And I would hear tapping all the way. It would work its way around on the wall. And this was a brick house, and it had that really thick wallpaper. So, you can often hear, say, a fly or a daddy longlegs flapping about on the wall. You would hear that sometimes because the paper was thick, very, very thick. This happened to me, I can't remember how many times, but I would tap. The tap would click round the room, tapping, and it would work its way all the way around the room until it was beside me. Sometimes the light would flicker, sometimes not, sometimes nothing would happen. But there was one time, so I used to be so afraid of this, and I just embraced it. I thought, I can't be afraid in my own house. I learned to sage the house. I laid different stones in different places. I put salt everywhere. I tried to make it as safe as possible. And this one time I was feeling quite brave, and it hadn't happened for a long time. And the tapping was coming round and round, and I kind of perked up and I sat and I just tried to follow it with my eyes. And it's coming round and round in the room. And then I could feel a tickle, like I don't know if it's maybe your crown chakra, but I felt a tingle. I don't really get it anymore, but I did in that house. And I had a tingle on like my crown on my head, and it would tingle, and I would feel like that's it making some sort of contact. So this one time, I was just about asleep, and like I say, I'm following it, I'm letting it happen, and it comes and I feel it tingle on my head. And whenever these things would happen, normally I would cancel it out. It would stop every time. I'm not a religious person. I am spiritual, but I don't have a religion. But I do say, when things get too much, I would say, in the name of Jesus Christ, I command you to leave my space. And I would be very firm with that. It took a little while. I used to feel really silly saying it. I felt, like I'm not religious. I shouldn't be using Jesus's name, but it's helped a lot, and it actually works. So on this occasion, I'm about to say it, and I don't remember anything else. So this is all I remember in the moment. Something's tapping in the middle of my head, and I'm about to tell it to do one. Well, the next day, I get on with my day as usual, and then I go to bed, and the second my head hit the pillow, it was like a flash. I remembered everything that happened the night before, and all these details came to me, and my blood just ran cold. After, this is what I remember. So I'm lying in bed, something was tapping my head, and this is the bit that I remembered the next day. I remember my mouth slurring in slow motion, saying, in the name, and I couldn't get it out. And I hear a voice saying, you left it too late that time. And it just made, like I said, my blood run cold. That was one of the scariest things that has ever happened to me, because who was that voice? What happened? It was almost like it put me to sleep. And then to remember it the minute my head hit my pillow the next day, it just doesn't make any sense to me. But in that room, I felt like things came to visit me in that room. It wouldn't be, has to be maybe 2, 3 times that I felt like there was something outside my window. So I lived in the middle of the fields. It was stunning. I had only one house next to me that was joined onto the cottage. The rest, all 3 sides of my house, was a field for about a mile. It was beautiful, but once it was dark, it was very, very dark. You could see everything, and you can hear everything. So I had stones all the way around the house for security. I put that there. And there's at least 2 or 3 times that I heard something under my window that I would liken to several crickets. But it was clicky. It was almost like a robotic sound of what a cricket might sound like. That's what it sounded like to me. And I don't know what that was. I can guess, I could take a guess at what it might be, but I don't really want to say that out loud. That's not happened again. My new house, where I live now, I've had a few things happen. In fact, I'll just go back one more thing that was witnessed by someone else in the house, in the old house. So my boyfriend and I, we were in the bedroom, and it was getting really late. So we're getting ready to go to bed. The lights are all dim, and I'm down in my wardrobe. So my bed filled up the room. I had the window on my left, and my window was always open. So I had the window on my left, and at the end of my bed, I had roller wardrobes, and then the door to get out was there. And then a wall right along the left to the other side. So I had my phone next to the bed, and I'm down at the wardrobe, and I'd keep my handbag inside the wardrobe at the bottom. So I'm leaning in, I'm on my hands and knees, I'm rummaging for something in my handbag, and I hear a phone go, it quite clearly in my right ear, in the wardrobe, and it does, I don't know if this is a Nokia tune or not, but it does diddle-a-did-did. So, and I'll never forget that. It was so clear. And I look up to Clinton and I say, was that your phone? And he says, no, my phone's over there, and points beside the bed at where he was sleeping on his side of the bed. And I said, well, my phone's there, your phone's there, so whose phone was that? And he's saying, I don't know, do you have another phone in there? And I'm like, no, I don't have another phone. There's no phone there. And he is a non-believer. He still says there must be an explanation for that, but I can't find an explanation for a phone going off inside my wardrobe, a phone, and I lived there for 10 years, approximately. I lived there for a long time. I think I would know if I had a Nokia sitting in the corner that would do the diddle-a-did-did. Anyway, that was the last thing I think that happened there that night. The energy, it felt so stiff in that room, even with the window open. So at that moment, I said, let's just go out for a drive, and then we'll come back. So we left the house. I went back. I found the energy to sage it. We gave it a really good sage. It must have been about 2 a.m. by the time we got back. We saged it, and it was all good. So now I'm in this house. I've only had a few little things. This house has really good energy. I'm in a village just outside Cooper, which is a little further afield than Kirkcaldy. So I'm close to St Andrews. So this little village is so cosy. It's lovely. The house is like an ex-council, semi-detached, 3-bed house. It's lovely. And I think there was a guy here that lived with his kids before me. And then before that, there was an old lady that lived here for a very long time. And I don't know if this lady's energy is still here or not, but there's been a few things happen in the bedroom. So Clint and I were sitting on the bed one night and we're chatting and drawing. I'm drawing and we're sitting on the bed and there's this rolled up piece of paper. And right in between us, this piece of paper rolls like someone has just rolled it a few inches and it tumbles over. And he sees it and I see it. And yet this non-believer still thinks there's an explanation for this. But it looked like someone moved it with their hand along the bed. I have no explanation for that apart from it might be this little lady. So the first thing that happened in this house, it wasn't long after I moved in. I was sleeping and I woke up to a lady's voice and it was so kind. She sounds lovely. And it just went, hello. It picked up at the end and it was almost like, it was nice. It was like saying hello to someone in the street or a new neighbour. It was nice. That was a nice one. And I think there was something else in this house that I attribute to that lady, maybe. It was in my bedroom, but I can't actually remember it. And I'm sure I've got other little things that I'm forgetting.
Wow, absolutely fascinating.
Do you have an interest in the paranormal? Then you'll love the unexnetwork.com. The X is your streaming audio and video for everything supernatural, strange, and mysterious, like UFOs, Bigfoot, ghosts, and so much more. From hosts like Clyde Lewis, Whitley Strieber, Micah Hanks, and Christina Gomez. Visit the unexnetwork.com show page for a complete list of all the paranormal programs you'll find on the X. Be sure to follow us on Twitter for updates at KUNXDB. Follow our Facebook group, UNX Network. Find the podcast on Spotify, iHeart, Audible, and Apple Podcast. It's time. It's new. It's the X.
A lot of spooky things going on in that part of Scotland.
Yeah, there actually are. It's well worth doing a little bit reading about this part of the country. I don't know if you're aware of the author, Malcolm Robinson.
Oh, yes, yeah.
Yeah, so he's across a bit. He's over in, is it Denny, I think? I don't know if he is, but I know I've read a few of his books, and he's a bit of an advocate for is it the Denny sighting or the Denny Triangle? Falkirk, that's it.
Yeah, I'm friends with him on Facebook. Yeah, I think he is from that region, if I remember rightly. Malcolm is.
Right, okay. I actually just messaged him. I haven't heard back, but I did message him, his website. I can't remember now. There was a story I heard about a place called Sauchie. I don't know if you've heard of Sauchie. That may well fall under the Falkirk Triangle, actually. It's just next to a place called, oh dear, I'm forgetting the name. There's a private school in quite a posh village near Stirling. Well, the very next village is Sauchie, which is Sauchie. And I was watching YouTube the other day. It was Halloween night. And I watched this guy do a piece on Sauchie. It's definitely something you should research. There's a street.
Is that the poltergeist?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes, and it's actually affected more than one house in the street. And there's people who have... I checked Rightmove, the website, because you can see sold house prices, but more to the point for this one, you could see the door numbers of sold houses. And I was trying to figure out, are they still council houses? Are they bought houses? Because there seems to be poltergeist activity right down that street. There's at least 3 houses where things have happened. And on Halloween, I was planning to do that, but my boyfriend had to do night shift. So we were planning on driving to Sauchie just to go down that street. But when I was watching that, so the village, Sauchie, is actually means something to do with the willows. Something to do with the willows. You might not want to put this in any recording, Nick, because there's lots of maybes and buts, and there's something to do with Sauchie being connected to willows and wisp of the willow. There's something to do with the name Sauchie that is connected to Willow the Wisp, or the Wisp of the Willows. And when I checked that, I gave it a Google. Now, I can't remember why I did this. I'll put my dots together eventually when I'm back in the rabbit hole. But I've messaged Malcolm Robinson because I think he did a little bit on that. I think on the YouTube thing I watched, he spoke about Malcolm Robinson's book and the streets and other people that have lived in that area. But there's something to do with the name Sauchie that means wisp of the willows. But then the word willow, if you put in wisp of the willow or willow the wisp, there's something biblical, and it means basically the place of the weeping spirits or the wallowing spirits. There's some sort of connection, and I found a little connection in that. That's why I messaged Malcolm to ask if he was aware of that. But
that's interesting, that is. I mean,
yeah, if I find it, I'll give you actual facts.
Yeah, that's because that's all connected to Scottish folklore. I mean, I grew up with Will-O the Wisp. Do you remember the old cartoon with Kenneth Williams used to do the voice?
Yes, so that's the craziest thing, because when I saw that, I gave it a Google, and then I saw the cartoon and I thought, I remember that. And I didn't know that was Will-O the Wisp. And then to think that I remember watching that show, because, I mean, early 80s, things were technology was very primitive. And that was probably all we really had. Back then, we had, I'd say, 3 channels on TV, I think. And I remember watching Will-O the Wisp, but until I'd seen a clip of it on YouTube, I could not remember it. I found myself watching episode after episode. It's such a trip.
We're showing our age a bit there, yeah. I'd have to go back and watch that. I've not watched that in donkey's years.
But it's really strange because there's actually a ghost in it. And then there's a TV that has the power to change people into different things. It's quite odd. I don't know why. I don't know the origins of Will-O the Wisp, but there's definitely something there that would be worth a good, research.
Absolutely, yeah. I know it's old Scottish folklore, Willow. That's where it all comes from. The ghost lights.
Ah, right. Okay. So is that the willow, or is the willow in the woods and the wisp is the lights? I'm not sure.
Willow is the spirit.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't know where the wisp comes from, though.
Yeah, I feel like I needed to. It was one of those rabbit holes where, you just want to dig into one piece of information, but you come across something else, then something else, and you're like, oh, I'm going to have to backtrack about 4 different screens on my phone and write stuff down and save pictures.
I tell you, if you Google about folklore, not just Scotland, but around the UK, I tell you, there are thousands and thousands of little mini folklore stories. There are so many. I
do love it. You've got all these different pockets. I quite like going up north to Thurso. It's just before you jump over to Orkney. It's the top of Scotland. I've got kind of aspirations to live up there. I've no idea why, but there's quite a lot going on up there. There's quite a lot of spooky things up there too, and there's a lot of archaeological finds as well up there, and they have cairns, the cairns that you could walk in for where they used to rest the dead.
Oh yes
Yeah. But I'm just checking folklore now because it actually reminds me growing up. So I'm half Polish. My dad's family are all Polish, both his parents, and growing up we were very much in the woods. We would pick fruit, whatever berries you could find. We grew up picking mushrooms. We shot our own food. We liked to think that we knew how to survive out in the woods, but we always believed there was fairies. Wherever we went, there was always fairies. And I remember being a young kid just thinking that the fairies would do all the dishes at night in the house.
I love these little accounts. A lot of your accounts have all been the one area around, try and get this right, Auchtertool.
Well done, yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, or if you're saying it more Scottish, you have to get your throat in there and do a Auchtertool.
Auchtertool, because it's not pronounced the way it's written. It's only because the way you've been saying it. I probably couldn't pronounce it.
Yeah.
Other words.
Well, it's spelled AUC, so that is Och, really. So it's Och, then TERTOOL.
Wonderful. I must admit, when you started mentioning places, I did get the Google out and had have a quick look, and a lot of it is all centralized. You got your dad's refinery, which is still actually there, isn't it? The Shell place.
Yeah, it's quite a controversial spot actually. There was a period, it must have been about 4 years ago now, and where I lived, you could probably check where I lived. So we lived in a white bungalow just as you drive into the village, just up on the hill, and that would give you a good point to see the crest of the hill where I was talking about. But I might just do some screenshots and send them to you later. And then the last house I was living in, well, that was shaking 4 years ago. They do a flare. I don't know if you're familiar with oil refineries, but they have a process they called flaring when they have, I think it's excess product. I'm really not sure. But it was so bad. The whole house and the lights were shaking. And that was in the neighbouring town. That was in all the surrounding houses. It was in Auchtertool. It was, and I wasn't in Auchtertool. I was a little bit out, but even our lights were shaking all through the house. It was really unsettling because I think if that place goes, a lot goes.
Right, yeah, crikey. And that was a few years ago, was it?
Yeah, that was 4 years ago, yeah. SEPA did investigations, and I recently read they're doing some kind of compensation package for residents.
Right, yeah, that makes sense. Oh, crikey. You know, your UFO experience, it was quite close to that refinery. Do you think there was a possibility that it could have had something maybe to do with that?
Yeah, it has crossed my mind, possibly.
You know, we hear a lot of accounts over nuclear facilities. We get the same kind of things over dams and heard over refineries before, so it's quite possible. But the whole area around where a lot of your stories tonight is originated from, mostly countryside, not really a heavily populated area.
No, it's very, there's a lot of agriculture out here, lots of fields. So there's also one that you might be interested in, an event that actually Malcolm Robinson wrote about. It was in Falklands. I think it was Newton of Falkland, I think. So apparently there was a lady in a car. She had another adult in the car with her, and they had two kids in the back, and they saw what they believed to be a UFO in a field whilst they were driving out for coffee. They were buying coffee from like a Spar or a Co-op or something in the nearby village. So they popped out to buy freeze-dried coffee, and they see this UFO in the field, and they saw all these little people, these little creatures, beings, picking things up from the ground, and taller beings sort of, being, I don't know, the foreman on site. Not very sure, but there is a section that Malcolm Robinson did, and he spoke to, I believe he spoke to the family, and that's a really funny one because that kid, they had very paranormal things happen in their house, very scary things, and then they've disappeared, and I've not been able to find the people or anything more about that. And that was just near Falkland. So there's a big hill on Falkland. There's often, illegal raves and UFO spotters, star spotters. They're up on Falkland Hill because it's the highest point in that area. And certainly it would be, if there was UFOs close to Falkland Hill, Newton of Falkland is just down the hill, just a little bit. So I don't know if there's any connection there. But yeah, I like to think there's more. Just people aren't talking about it, that's all. There isn't that one universal place to share this.
I'll check that case out, sure. And you said they've completely disappeared, maybe just out of the public eye.
Yeah, the people have gone. So they've probably just moved house and, moved on with their life, I imagine.
Right, okay. Well, it seems that you're quite sensitive to these things that have happened, as well as your family, including your daughter and your son.
Yeah, it appears that way. I think as more things happen, I accept that. Whereas before, you'd have a couple things happen and feel a bit like an imposter. Do I really feel these things? Is this real? Is it really happening? But the more things that have happened, it's undeniable that things do happen and we do feel things. And I don't think I think we probably all have that ability, depending on the level of empathy you carry, to connect with things that we don't understand.
I couldn't agree more. I believe the same thing. I think we all have this, really. If you listen to a lot of the accounts we have on the show, just normal people having strange experiences.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's nothing normal about these things, but it certainly happens to normal people. And
that's a good way of putting it.
I don't want it to stop. I do think what's next, but it's nice living in a space now with peace, and I'm not in fear of things. So my daughter, she actually just had something she's been experiencing more. So she predominantly stays at her father's house now. I live in the middle of nowhere and he's more central. So it's beside her school. She's a 16-year-old girl. She wants to be near the hustle and bustle, I guess. So she just recently, this was only a few months ago, she was sitting in her living room in her father's house. And when they're doing their washing, so he lives in a flat. So when they do their washing, they hang clothes on hangers, clothes hangers, like a coat hanger, and then hook them all on the curtain pole. They'll hang them up there and then leave the windows open so it dries the washing in the flat. So Emily said she was sitting there in the living room watching TV, and she heard what she thought sounded like someone throwing pots and pans and dishes in the kitchen. And she knows there's nobody through there. She was alone in the house. So she said she sat there petrified until it stopped at 2 a.m. So it stops. And then she said she decides, oh, right, okay, I could get up and go through now, because she was afraid to go to bed, to the bathroom, to anything. So she finally stands up to go through. And as she goes to get up, she said there was 5 shirts, 5 tops on this curtain pole on coat hangers. She said all 5 of them lifted, the hangers as well, so hangers and all, lifted and all fell on the floor, and she ran out the room. So, yeah, that's a really scary one.
Yeah, you probably want to start training there in the use of sage.
Well, I did. I said to her, did you use your sage, darling? Get your stones out, get your salt. So she did. She cleansed herself. She's taking care of it. But I think just because she's a 16-year-old girl, it's that sort of age that things seem to happen. And I've tried to direct them to say, it feels like you're in a situation where you're not in control, but you actually are. And that fear is making it much worse. So you take the control back and you use, your sage, your whatever you believe. She wears a crucifix. I use the name of Jesus. Do whatever you need to do, but you're in control of that. This is this physical realm. This is ours. And certain things aren't welcome.
Yeah, exactly. Even if you're not religious, I think a lot of it is belief something will work.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I guess it's the power of the mind, isn't it? And when I actually, looking back, I was trying to make things stop, but I didn't have the tools. I didn't have the ability to stop these things. But now, I have the control. Oh, I have a really big one, actually. I have a really big one, a really important one. This is the thing that changed me to a believer. So in the house in Balweary, so it was on Wraith Estate, but where we were, it was Balwearie. That's Balwearie. So Balwearie Castle was in the field just off the garden, and we were in Balwearie cottages. So it was my granddad was dying. So he had cancer all through him. He was a happy alcoholic till the day he died. So his body was kaput. He was on his way out. We knew he was dying. We just didn't know when. So he was always very sprightly. He was chipper right to the end. He was still trying to sneak a cigarette and a whiskey whilst he's, riddled with cancer. And I'm in bed. So I was married, and my daughter Emily, she must have been about... So she was a baby, actually. She was a baby when this happened. And my granddad, I had a dream. I thought it was a dream, but it wasn't a dream. So I'm lying in bed and I feel something on my arm, on my right arm. And I wake up and it's my dad. So that's what I call my granddad. That's like I don't know if it's a Scottish thing or not. I think it is. It might be a Fife thing. So it's just D-I, die. So I felt him on my arm, and then I look across, and he's leaning down, and he says, "That's me away, hen." And then I wake up, and I look to the side of me, and I see the time, and it's something like it was something like 2:15. It was something like that. And then the phone goes first thing, and I shout to my ex-husband, and I say, hey, wait, I need to tell you something. I had this dream. If I don't tell you that I had this dream and something happens, you'll never believe me. So I told him what happened, and then the phone goes, and it's barely 6 o'clock in the morning, so he is not happy. He's going, who's, calling the house at this time? And I says, no, I know what it is. And he puts the phone down, and he says, it was your dad. He died this morning about 2:30. And that was me, a believer. How could you not believe that? That was my evidence. He came to say, bye, that's me away, hen. Hen is an affectionate term here for a female. So yeah, he said, that's me away, hen. And he looked so happy. And I didn't tell anybody for weeks because I didn't want it to be, oh, Nicola's he's not even cold, and she's saying, oh, I've had an experience. But yeah, that was a really big one for me. That was a huge turning point.
That made you a believer. Yeah, that was really nice that he came to visit. 100%.
Yeah, very comforting. It was lovely. It was very, very nice. I felt privileged.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Oh, it was lovely. It was just, I didn't expect it, and I thought, why me? Why did you choose me out of all the grandkids? But yeah, I just love it, and it gives me so much comfort now.
Why not you? Obviously, he had a connection with you, so why wouldn't he say one last goodbye?
Yeah, and I think I was actually the first grandchild, so it could be that. I think he did babysit me, whereas I think I may have been the only grandchild that he did babysit. So there's that. Yeah, we've got these. I have a photo of us in the old black and white photo booths that comes on a strip. I have one of those. If I find it, I'll send you a copy.
Absolutely.
There was another thing, actually. There's one thing in the village that my sister believes she was chased down the village by a stone, and she came home hysterical that this stone would not stop following her. And my mum got the doctor out. He swore that stone followed her and chased her all the way down the village and home. And that, to me, sounds like a bit of the fae or folklore, possibly.
The fairies, you mean?
Yeah, the fays. Could be the fairies. Yeah, that's what I think, with it being a stone. I could not get my head around that one, why she would be followed by a stone. And she said it started slowly, that she heard it, and then she saw behind her, and then she'd look again, and it was behind her again. And then she's running, and the stone's coming behind her. It sounds so odd and far-fetched, but I remember the day she came in the house, she was hysterical. They could not calm her down. They had to phone the doctor. The doctor came out and said that she was hallucinating. And she had no medical issues. She was, just as normal as me. She had her little, weird things happen. So that may be one of her things, but it's quite a unique one. I haven't heard many people, and I've pretty much dedicated... So I got quite sick about a decade ago. So I spend a lot of time at home resting. And I've pretty much dedicated my life to listening to podcasts. It's actually lovely. And I have never really heard of anyone having a stone or a rock following them home.
Well, what I'll do is, I had an email from a guy, and he runs the Fascinating Fairies podcast.
Okay.
He's supposed to be coming on the show when he's not too busy to share his fairy experiences. So I'd ask him to see if he's heard anything similar to that.
Yeah.
Got a feeling he's US based. But I had a random email from a guy several years ago. Now, he sent me the email. He didn't want to come on the show or anything like that. He was a hiker, and he was hiking, I think it was Georgia, no one around for miles. And he said he witnessed little people, several of them. For the life of me, I could not get him to come on. He was like, no, no one would believe me. So,
I mean, you could understand his position.
Oh, crikey,
that just gave me goosebumps.
Crikey, yeah. Some people shrug to folklore stories, but they originate usually from something. I mean, fair enough, you can put things down to superstition and not understanding something and metaphors and all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I think there's definitely something there.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know, see the term brownies, is that unique to the UK or is that Scotland? Because we would call things brownies, but then as well, like the girl guides, we have the version for girl guides for younger girls, and that's also called the brownies. And you have to be like a helpful person and, do good kind of thing. But brownies are also a term for some type of elemental little person thing.
That's
it
right.
could be like a Dobby-esque thing.
That's right. I think in England we have the little brownie girls handing out the cookies and stuff.
Ah, right. It's the same.
Yeah, exactly the same. But the brownie fairies, I believe they were house elementals, if I remember rightly.
Okay, that'll be the ones, like the cleaners.
Cleaning up, making a mess, all kinds of mischief like that. Well, to be honest with you, they could be quite beneficial in a house. I think we could do with a couple of them.
Yeah, that's quite interesting. I think we could probably talk all day about these kind of things, but I'm looking forward to... I'm not going to listen to the podcast, but I will tell my family. I'll ask. I'm not sure how many people will listen because they know this is me now, but they kind of roll their eyes and, like, oh, okay. Even my boyfriend, he's such a skeptic, but he is very much, black and white, I believe it kind of thing. But he wants so badly to experience something. But when these small things have happened, he just won't accept it. He needs like whipped off his feet to believe it. So I think I need to take him to those Edinburgh dungeons or something like that.
You guys are in the perfect place to visit a few stately homes and a few haunted hotels. Yeah, Edinburgh. Oh, Gothic Edinburgh, absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, it's just everywhere here. Even in our own little towns, it's like a little village hall or, a little alleyway that's just all cobbled. Like that must hold something. It has to hold something.
Yeah, do that. Yeah, make sure you find a place that's going to knock his socks off.
Oh, let's hope so. Okay. It was nice talking to you, Nick.
Nicola, I really appreciate you coming on and sharing that. Absolutely fascinating to hear your accounts.
Oh, no worries. Thank you. You take care.
You take care too. Enjoy the rest of your day and we will speak soon, okay?
Will do. Thank you.
Okay.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Take care for now. Bye-bye.
Well, that's all for this episode. Keep updated and connected with the show on X, Facebook, and Instagram. And if you have an encounter that you'd like to share on the podcast, you can email me at ufochronicles@gmail.com, or you can reach out to me via the contact page on my website, ufochroniclespodcast.com. A big thank you to Nicola for sharing tonight, and thank you all for listening. I will be back next week. Till then, stay safe and keep watching the skies. Goodbye.